There's a particular kind of silence that cuts deeper than words. A silence that doesn't just echo, it shatters. You know it. It's the silence of a man who once craved your presence, now pretending you don't exist. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement. And the first question that creeps into your mind isn't about him, it's about you. Did I do something wrong? But here's the raw truth. His silence says far more about his own inner chaos than it ever could about your worth. What he avoids in you is only a mirror of what he cannot face in himself. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And many men, without realizing it, resist you, not because you're too much, but because you reflect something they've buried, a fear of vulnerability, of depth, of losing control. So what does it really mean when a man ignores you? Is it power, pride, detachment? No, it's weakness. Not the kind he'll ever admit, but the kind that whispers through his every retreat. You were never too emotional. You were a threat to his armor, and he ran. Because make no mistake, ignoring someone is not an act of strength. It's a retreat, a coping mechanism. A man who turns cold in your warmth isn't unaffected. He's overwhelmed. And instead of facing the storm within himself, he convinces himself that distance is dignity. But silence in this case is not peace. It's a war he's losing. Inside. Still, here's where too many women fall into the trap. They see the distance and they chase it. They interpret the withdrawal as a puzzle to solve. They try harder, love louder, beg quieter. But what if I told you that his greatest weakness is not that he walked away, but that he believed you would stay exactly where he left you? You see, men don't feel loss while you're still available. They feel it the moment they realize you've changed, and they didn't see it coming. He counted on your predictability. He fed on your emotional availability. He was certain that whenever he returned, you'd still be there, smiling, waiting, offering the same soft place to land. And then one day, you weren't. No reaction, no desperation, no effort to be seen. That's the moment the dynamic breaks. That's when you stop being a background character in his story and become the plot twist he never saw coming. Because here's something most men don't want to admit. They fear what they can't define. They crave control. And when your silence becomes louder than your presence ever was, they feel the power shifting, and it terrifies them. Women post cryptic messages. They refresh stories. They check if he watched, liked, reacted. And every time, they validate the illusion that he still holds power. But what happens when he watches, and there's nothing to see? What happens when you've stopped performing for his attention? A chasm opens in his mind. The woman he assumed would always orbit around him suddenly vanished into her own universe. Not because she's playing a game, but because she remembered who the fuck she is. And this, right here, is where your power is reborn. Not in manipulation, not in revenge, in absence, intentional, unapologetic, unavailable. Because the absence of a powerful woman is not an empty space. It's a mirror he can't escape. One that forces him to confront the fact that the comfort he took for granted has evolved into a silence he can no longer control. Carl Jung spoke of shadow, the unconscious part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. When you step away from a man who ignores you, you are not punishing him. You are allowing him to face his shadow without a distraction. And that, for many men, is unbearable. He wanted control, but he never wanted to earn it. He wanted admiration, but not the responsibility that comes with being truly seen. He wanted you on his terms, but your power is that you've reclaimed your own. So the next time a man ignores you, don't shrink, don't chase, don't question your worth in the absence of someone who couldn't handle your presence. Let him feel what silence really sounds like. Not your silence, but your growth. Because when a man realizes the woman who once gave him everything has nothing left for him, not anger, not pain, not attention, just indifference, that's not a loss. That's an earthquake. He used to be sure of you. Sure that no matter what he did or didn't do, you'd still be there. waiting, hoping, watching. He didn't have to try. He didn't have to earn you. Because in his mind, your love was a constant, effortless, guaranteed, unconditional. But something shifted. And here's what he didn't expect. You stopped giving energy to someone who never gave it back. You didn't yell. You didn't beg. You just withdrew. And in that space, in that silence, something began to unravel inside him. Not immediately. At first, he probably didn't even notice. He scrolled past your name without a second thought. But then the silence lingered. Days passed, and it hit him in the smallest way, like an itch in the back of the mind he couldn't scratch. That's how it starts. He checks your story, nothing. He scrolls to your profile, quieter than before. He wonders, is she okay? But what he's really asking is she still thinking about me? You've stopped reacting, stopped reaching, stopped making him feel important. And here's the paradox. While he was ignoring you, he felt powerful. But now, in your absence, he feels irrelevant because your attention was his mirror. It made him feel seen, wanted, admired, even if he did nothing to deserve it. That's the second weakness of a man who ignores you. He builds his confidence on the illusion that you need him more than he needs you. As long as you're around, he can avoid his insecurities. But when you disappear, they return, louder, heavier, inescapable. Carl Jung said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." And when you stop reflecting back to him the image he craves, he's forced to meet a version of himself he's been avoiding. The man who isn't sure he's enough. The man who depended on your energy just to feel whole. Now he views your stories. Now he leaves a little reaction on your post. Not because he suddenly cares, but because he needs to feel your gaze again. This isn't love. It's ego. And that's the part he doesn't want you to understand. Because if you did, truly, deeply understood it, you'd realize how much power you've always had. When a man ignores you and you keep showing up, you become a reflection of his ego. But when you walk away and he feels your absence, you become a reflection of his emptiness. Let that sink in. You didn't change. You just stopped feeding the illusion. You stopped validating his sense of superiority. Because here's another truth. Many men feed off a woman's insecurity. It gives them a sense of control. They like knowing you fear losing them, that you doubt your worth without their validation, that you think they're the best you'll ever get. But everything changes the moment you prove otherwise. The moment you radiate confidence. Not perform it, not fake it, but truly live in it. He senses it. Even if he can't explain it, he knows. You no longer need him. And that shakes him. Because suddenly, he's no longer the prize. He's the one who has to prove something. Jung taught that what we resist persists. And when a man resists your strength, your clarity, your emotional independence, it doesn't disappear. It grows in the dark. Until one day he wakes up and realizes, the woman who once needed him now intimidates him. So no, you don't need to post thirst traps. You don't need to send cryptic texts. You don't need to make him jealous. You need to shift your energy away from proving your worth and into embodying it. Because the moment you stop trying to be seen, you become unforgettable. The third weakness of a man who ignores you is this. He believes he's irreplaceable, and he feeds that belief through your behavior, not his. He thinks he's the center of your world because you keep orbiting him. But the moment you step out of that orbit and start spinning in your own galaxy, he loses gravity. Now he's the one drifting. He's the one who can't sleep. He's the one checking, wondering, regretting. But here's the real kicker. You didn't leave to hurt him. You didn't disappear to make a point. You simply grew tired of pouring into someone who refused to hold the cup. And that kind of growth, it's terrifying for a man who thought you'd never leave. Because when you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself, you become the one thing he never prepared for. A woman he can't manipulate. A woman he can't predict. A woman he can't reach. Because she's finally realized she was never beneath him. She was always beyond him. There's a moment, subtle but seismic, when a man who once ignored you begins to panic. He won't show it, not directly, but it slips through in small nervous gestures. The way he suddenly watches your stories. The meaningless likes he throws your way like crumbs, hoping you'll still bite. The half-hearted comments, just enough to remind you he exists, but never enough to give you clarity. Why? Because he feels it. He feels the shift. You're not chasing anymore. You're not trying. And for the first time, he doesn't feel important. You see, what he truly feared wasn't your anger. It was your indifference. A woman's silence, when rooted in self-worth, is deafening. And here's the paradox. He was comfortable ignoring you when he believed he still held your attention. But when that energy disappears, when the certainty vanishes, his comfort turns into confusion. His illusion of control begins to unravel. Carl Jung said, "What you deny in yourself becomes fate." And men like him deny this truth. They were never in control. Your belief that they were gave them that illusion. Now, that illusion is gone. And here's where his third weakness starts to eat him alive. He thought he was the center of your universe. But you've started building solar systems that have nothing to do with him. You've reconnected with your friends, reclaimed your passion, rebuilt your boundaries, rediscovered the parts of you that were dimmed when you made him your priority. And that is the death of the illusion, because he never expected you to expand without him. He counted on your loneliness, on your focus being entirely on him, on you forgetting the world so you could orbit his mood swings. But you remembered, and now that you're glowing again, he sees it, and worse, others see it. And suddenly the woman who once felt like his secret is becoming someone else's dream. Not because you jumped into another man's arms, but because you finally walked back into your own life. Here's a truth no man wants you to realize. He needed you to believe he was essential to your happiness, that without him, you'd crumble, that you needed him emotionally, maybe even financially, because that belief gave him leverage. But when you take your power back, not with words, but with action, you strip him of that leverage. You dismantle the throne he built on top of your insecurities. And now he has to face the most terrifying question of all. What if I was never that important? That question echoes in the mind of every man who once thought he could leave and return as he pleased, because now he doesn't know what he'll find when, or if, he comes back. The woman who once waited for him may no longer exist. And that uncertainty, it haunts him, because here's his fourth weakness. He mistook access for permanence. He thought having access to you meant having you, that just because you were emotionally open, you'd stay emotionally dependent. But a woman with awakened self-worth is not a revolving door. She's a fortress. And once the gates are closed, they don't open to the same knock twice. He didn't expect you to evolve. He expected you to break. And now that you're stronger, brighter, and more magnetic than ever, he realizes the only one who truly lost something was him. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person, and that realization, the weight of it, begins to crush the very ego that once dismissed you. But let's be clear, you didn't transform to teach him a lesson. This isn't about revenge. You didn't become powerful to get him back. You became powerful because you remembered you were never meant to beg for what should be freely given. Because you've seen now, the greatest love story isn't between you and a man who couldn't choose you. It's between you and the woman you stopped abandoning. So when he starts to circle back, don't answer just because he finally noticed. Ask yourself, does he deserve access to who I've become? Because the woman he ignored is not the woman he'd be coming back to. She's wiser, quieter, calmer, but not because she's weak. Because she's done bleeding for people who never deserved her softness in the first place. Here's the most brutal truth he never expected to face. You were the one thing holding him together, and he only realized it when you stopped trying to hold him at all. At first, he may have mistaken your silence for a phase. He thought you'd eventually return, like you always did, gentle and forgiving. But days turned to weeks, and suddenly your absence began to settle into his skin like a ghost that wouldn't leave. He's haunted now, not by what you said, but by what you didn't. Because here's what no one tells him. A woman doesn't go quiet when she stops caring. She goes quiet when she's finally accepted the truth. And the truth is this: she deserves so much more than half-hearted effort, delayed replies, and temporary affection. So now he sits with the silence he created. And in that stillness, for the first time, he feels the discomfort you once carried in your chest every night. The uncertainty, the self-doubt, the aching need for answers that never came. The roles have reversed, but not because you wanted revenge. You simply stopped offering yourself to someone who wasn't capable of seeing your value the first time. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This man thought he was in control, but what he was really doing was reacting, running, projecting. He didn't ignore you because you were unworthy. He ignored you because your presence demanded he grow, and he wasn't ready. Because loving a woman who knows herself forces a man to meet parts of himself he's never confronted. And now he's starting to feel it. The emptiness that replaces you is not just emotional, it's energetic. He doesn't feel admired anymore. He doesn't feel chosen. He doesn't feel seen. Because you, unknowingly, were the mirror that reflected back to him a better version of himself. But the moment you stopped reflecting that light, he was left with nothing but his own shadows. And shadows, my love, can't fill a room. Here's what makes it worse for him. You're not punishing him. You're not lashing out. You're just done. And there is nothing more threatening to a man who relied on your need than a woman who no longer needs anything from him. Not his attention, not his approval, not even closure. Because closure isn't something you wait for. Closure is what happens when you stop romanticizing someone's potential and start honoring your own truth. And your truth is this: you never had to chase. You never had to fix. You never had to be good enough for someone who didn't even know what they were looking for. He ignored you because he believed your love was a forever offer. But love is not a subscription service. It expires when it goes unappreciated. So now he replays memories like reruns. The way you laughed, the softness in your eyes when you looked at him, the way you listened like his words mattered. And it hits him. You were rare. You were golden. You were irreplaceable. But he treated you like background noise in a life he thought he had all figured out. And now, with nothing but static in your place, he realizes the music's gone. But here's the fifth and final weakness of a man who ignores a woman like you. He only feels your value in your absence, because he was never strong enough to meet it in your presence. You challenged him without even trying. You were deep when he was still shallow. You offered emotional intimacy, and he mistook it for intensity. He confused your vulnerability for weakness, your availability for desperation. But now that you've gone quiet, calm, radiant, he starts to wonder if he lost the best thing he never truly understood. And that, right there, is the core of his unraveling. You weren't too much. He was just never enough. Not for the woman you are, but for the woman you were becoming. But by the time he realizes it, you'll be too far gone. And no breadcrumb trail of likes, texts, or empty apologies will be enough to lead you back. Because the woman he once ignored is now a woman he will never again have access to. You didn't walk away to be cruel. You walked away to survive. And in doing so, you discovered you didn't need him to feel whole. By the time he realizes what he lost, you're no longer the woman who would have begged to be remembered. Because now, you are unforgettable. You didn't disappear to teach him a lesson. You evolved. And your evolution became the lesson. You chose yourself. And that choice echoed louder than any words ever could. So while he sits there, scrolling, regretting, wondering, you're not waiting for closure. You are the closure. Carl Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And your darkness, that heartbreak, that betrayal, that gut-wrenching silence, you faced it. You held it in your bare hands. And instead of letting it consume you, you alchemized it into wisdom, into standards, into power. Because the woman who rises after being ignored is not the same woman who once longed to be seen. She no longer just wants love, she commands it. Not from a place of entitlement, but from a place of deep knowing. I am no longer available for anyone who cannot meet me in the depth of who I am. You see, the greatest shift happens not when he realizes your worth, but when you do. Because when you finally see yourself clearly, no one else's confusion can shake you. Not his silence, not his mixed signals, not his sudden return when he feels your absence more than he ever felt your presence. You've outgrown the version of you who needed to be chosen. And now, you choose with discernment, with grace, with unwavering clarity. So when, not if, he comes back, don't ask yourself, does he want me? Ask yourself, is he even capable of holding space for the woman I've become? And if the answer is no, you let him feel the weight of that boundary, the one he never thought you'd have the strength to draw. Because that is what makes you unforgettable, not the way you loved him, but the way you loved yourself enough to walk away when he couldn't meet you there. He ignored you because he never imagined you'd stop trying. He ghosted because he thought you'd never glow without him. He disappeared because he never thought you'd choose yourself over the crumbs he offered. But now he knows. And it's too late. Because once a woman learns how to pour into herself, she becomes a fountain no one can drain. And here's the final truth, the one that will sting if he ever dares to reflect. He didn't lose you when he stopped texting. He didn't lose you when he pulled away. He didn't lose you when he ignored your worth. He lost you the moment you stopped needing him to realize any of it. And the most terrifying thing for a man like that, it's knowing that the woman who once would have done anything to be loved by him has now become the kind of woman he will spend the rest of his life trying and failing and to replace. So walk on, not with bitterness, not with revenge in your heart, but with the fierce serenity of a woman who knows the power was never in being seen. The power was in never needing to be.